What's up, everybody? I'm Julia Rose Portela. I am a conscious communication specialist, and I look into books and explore them through the lens of conscious communication. And today, I am going to look at the book, The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This goes without warning, but there are going to be spoilers for The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. I'm not talking about the adaptation that happened for TV. We're strictly talking about the source material of the book. So if you have not read the book, pause it here, go read it, and come back when you're done. I will be here waiting for you when you're ready. I'm going to give a little synopsis, and then we're going to talk about two communication wins, two communication losses that happen throughout the book, The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. Okay, so The Flatshare is about recently single Tiffy, who is in need of a place of her own. She works in London as an underpaid assistant editor. She's got a tight budget. And now she even owes some money to her ex for their previously shared apartment. When she reads an advert for an affordable flat share that involves sharing not only the apartment, also the bed, with somebody who works a night shift, she decides that she has no better option and decides to buy in. The flat is currently occupied by Leon, who will only be in the apartment from 9 a.m. To 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. And since he works overnight shifts doing hospice care, the schedule works out perfectly where Leon and Tiffy can actually share the space without ever having to meet. Shortly after moving in, Tiffy begins to exchange notes with Leon, and over time, these notes become deeply personal, and the two share a budding romance. I want to also preface that I listened to this through audiobook. So I do not have direct quotes like I will for some of my other videos. I will just be summarizing as we go along, but all of this belongs to all of the information in the context that we talk about today is belonging to the direct source material, which is the book proper. So we're going to talk about two communication wins first, okay? First communication win, writing notes, period. This is so personal to my heart because when I was in middle and high school, something that I had was almost, if you think about Mean Girls, where they had like the slam book. I had a journal that I shared with a bunch of my friends, and in between every period, it would go to a different friend, and we'd have to write a letter in the book or like how our day was going. And this was before text. This was when texts were still paid for, when you had to pay per text. So this was incredibly poignant when we were going through this experience because we had a mode of communication that was deeply personal to us. It was in this little journal that we all got to share. It was kind of like the sisterhood of the traveling pants, but with our book. And it made me really fond of letters. And when I got into my first serious relationship, my first love, this was something that just overflowed for me. I would be going through these deep moments of experiencing that love for the first time, or through the myriad of different things that we worked through together in that first relationship. Letters became a staple for communication between my partner and I. Now, again, this was during a time when texting was not at the peak that it is today. So this was super poignant, but they have followed me as a mode of communication. And I think that they are a really incredible and effective tool, especially when you have something serious going on. Now, this isn't a predominantly like the primary zone of communication that you want to exist in, but that doesn't mean that letters can't have a place. And here's why I think notes or letters are a win. It gives you space to think about what you want to say and put it down in a way that is effective and packs a punch, and it's not rushed, right? There's intentionality behind a letter. There's intentionality behind what we write. And you can even cross things out when you come to recognize, like, that's not maybe what I wanted to say, or you can start over and you can backpedal just much more easily. I also like it because it gives then the reader time to listen to what you are saying, to consider your words, to allow them to digest, and then to respond in a way that does not coax immediacy. Now, when we're talking face to face, and even when we're talking with text, there is an immediacy to respond. And especially when it comes to text, this is nothing that maybe the person who is texting us is forcing an issue on, but it is a societal pressure that we have put on, right? Like we should respond to texts immediately. And what a letter does is it actually creates space from the word immediacy. It allows us to move through our feelings and not necessarily speak in rashness or anger or in the immediacy of the emotions that we are feeling when something comes up for us. It gives us space to process as we're writing. And it also gives somebody the space to process as they're reading, be intentional about what they are going to then respond with. So I just think letters are a huge communication win. And I think it makes it so much easier to allow the content to be digested and to just create a really safe space for effective and intimate communication. The second communication win, and this also happens in their letter writing, using emojis. I don't know what the exact quote is, but there is a point in the story when Tiffy is trying to say something about the apartment to Leon. I'm going to take a stab here. I think it's that he leaves the toilet seat up and she's like, I don't mean this to be passive aggressive. So I'm just going to put a bunch of smileys to let you know that I'm not saying this aggressively or like in a mean way. But could you please put the toilet seat down? Smiley face, smiley face, smiley face. And there's something really endearing about that. But emojis, and especially when it comes to texting, and this is more relevant for texting as far as a primary mode of communication in which we are all societally connected to at this point, using emojis is so effective in texting because texts lack tone. So we can't hear how somebody is intending for their words to land, which means that in any state of existence to which we are, we can receive somebody's text message in the state that we are in versus the state that they are intending for us to receive it. And what an emoji does is it allows us as the sender to really effectively share the tone of our text message. And it allows the recipient to understand the tone of the text message. So simply just adding a smiley face or an angry face or a sad face allows the reader to input that text that you're saying with the tone and context simply just based off of the visual cue that you are offering them by giving them the emoji to support the tone that you're trying to convey. Those are two communication wins. Using emojis while you text to imply the tone that you're trying to convey. And the second one is just letters in general and writing notes and cultivating intimacy through the need, not forcing the need for immediacy. There are also some major communication losses in the book. The first one is oddly specific to the book. So I'm going to talk about the specific scenario and then I'm going to backtrack on why. In the book, Tiffy has a pretty emotionally abusive ex-boyfriend who progressively over the course of the book, we start to recognize is really trying to leverage his past relationship with Tiffy to dismantle this budding relationship and this budding romance that is happening between her and Leon. And at one point, he even goes so far as to plan a proposal. And he is in front of all of these people. They are at one of Tiffy's work events. And as the scene is unfolding, there is so much pressure for her on stage as she is in front of all of these people and all of her coworkers and tons of other people at a book launch. And her ex-boyfriend now proposes to her. And before she can effectively get anything out, her shock takes over and he speaks for her and says, she said yes. And this creates a slew of problems through the rest of the book. This is, drama 101 in a romance book. But there is something that is really poignant about this piece because there are times in our lives when we will actually need the support of somebody to advocate for us. We will maybe not be able to find our voice, or maybe we're just in a state where we can't be the primary person to deliver a message. And so we need somebody to advocate for us. But when it comes to an engagement, and especially when it comes to something that is so public, and he did this on purpose, right? He is trying to, the boyfriend in the book, the ex-boyfriend is called Justin. Justin is trying to get a leg up on Tiffy, that if he just does it in this very public place, he can sort of, through that emotional abuse piece, pull her in, she'll just comply, and that will be that. But there is something that is really stripping somebody of their agency by speaking for them, unless we have been asked to advocate for somebody. So there are circumstances where it is okay to speak for somebody, right? We've had usually those conversations up front when it comes to advocacy. But when we are taking away somebody's agency by speaking for them, it is absolutely taking something away from somebody, and it is creating a problem between that person, their voice, and the rest of the space to which they are delivering that message. And this is oftentimes why you see people say, like, hey, you're speaking over me, or you're speaking for me, or I didn't mean that, you said that. And speaking for somebody, and by alleviating them of that agency, we are actually diminishing the power of their voice. So do not do this. Do not say yes to somebody's engagement when it's their yes to say. That's oddly specific for the book, but agency is so important for the confidence in communication. And when it comes to conscious communication, if we don't feel good about what we're saying, we're probably not going to say it at all. So it's why a lot of times conscious communication slips through the cracks and we don't end up speaking or advocating for ourselves because we really don't know how. And sometimes we can even delegate that to other people. And then we get scenarios like this where somebody speaks for us and we actually discover internally, that's not what I wanted. And now they've spoken for me. So it just gives you your choice, and it gives you your agency. Keep your voice here. You're not Ariel. You don't have to give it away. Okay. Second communication loss, and this sort of comes in the aftermath of Justin saying yes for Tiffy for the engagement. Because they are at this incredibly public event, this engagement is filmed, it's put online, Leon ends up seeing it, and before Tiffy and Leon can even connect about what has happened, Leon just sort of freezes her out. So there's sort of two pieces that happen here. Tiffy reaches out to Leon because she's needing the support in that moment. She needs the validation. She wants his advice. She wants his guidance. She wants him to be the one that is emotionally making her feel better, because they have this budding romance that is unfolding in the story. And he is so dismayed by what he has seen that, like, of course she would get together back with her ex-boyfriend. And he's going on his spiral. He doesn't even check in with her. So that's sort of like 1A, where he doesn't even check in with her. So he never gets her side of the story. And if he would have just picked up the phone the first time and been like, this is incredibly painful, I can't believe that you've done this to me. Even if he would have done that and come at her with that immediate, direct emotional response in the upfront, he would have immediately been met with the response, what you've seen is actually what is not true. And they would have been able to start working it out then. Instead, he freezes her out. He doesn't answer her call. And it takes so long through their connections, their interpersonal connections, for the actual story to get back to Leon, for him to be able to understand that she didn't actually say yes, that Justin has made this choice for her, has taken away her agency and taken away her voice, and that she's not actually engaged and she's not actually going to marry this guy. And if he would have just picked up the phone and confronted her to begin with by getting her side of the story, when somebody is your partner, you are supposed to have trust and intimacy there, at the very least, to be giving them the benefit of the doubt. And he does talk about this in Leon's perspective. He does say, doesn't quite say this, but there is an implication that there is guilt that he hasn't checked in with her, that this could have all been avoided. And it's true, right? Our partner is supposed to be the person that we have this intimacy with on a communication level. And so the benefit of the doubt doesn't mean at extenuating circumstances, but our partner should be somebody that we feel comfortable going to and having that connection with and talking to them about, so that we're really able to continue to build that vulnerability and intimacy within our relationship. And by not doing that, by freezing her out, which is just like a hard communication no. Do not ghost. Do not freeze your partner out. Do not just shut down. You are allowed the space to shut down if you need to, but at the very least, communicate that. Say, hey, I'm moving through some of these emotions right now, and I don't have the space to have the conversation, because we can then renegotiate the timeline. It doesn't have to be that when Tiffy wanted to talk about it, that Leon had to be ready to talk about it. However, if he said, I need some space to process this and digest it, they could have had a conversation about like, well, when can I expect to hear from you? Which is fair when you are in a space where you are cultivating that relationship and you're cultivating that intimacy and you're building a partnership. You should be able to say to your partner, it doesn't have to always be on my timeline, but then it doesn't always have to be on yours. So we do not need to sort of bust the door open and be like, are you ready to talk about my day? We don't know what kind of state our partner is going to be in, right? But when we can backtrack that and we say, hey, the partner can say, hey, I'm not ready to talk about your day yet. I need to go take a shower. And then when I come back, we can have this conversation. You are allowed to negotiate the timeline in which you talk about things, but it doesn't have to be that it's all or nothing. And when we are trying to cultivate that intimacy and that vulnerability and that connection with our partner, the worst thing that we can do in a communication standpoint is freeze them out. So that is a little bit about the communication wins and communication losses from the Flatshare. Read the book. It was phenomenal. And I thought the audiobook, by the way, was just a chef's kiss. So go and read the book. I will be back here next week and we will be chatting about another book, When the Moon Hatched. And I'm so excited to share my insights with you guys.